All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow. All for rainbow.
Welcome everyone to All for Rainbow podcast. This episode is 13th in a row, and with me today I have Hanna and Verity. Hi, hello.
Hi, I'm Verity. This is what my voice sounds like.
I'm
Nice.
Hanna. This is what my voice sounds like. Can I say who I am and like what I do?
Yes, you can.
So my name is Hanna Szentpeteri, and I'm a filmmaker and screenwriter and bisexual body positivity activist.
I'm Verity, more popularly known as Verity Ritchie on YouTube. I'm a bi and trans activist and a YouTuber.
Cool. So today's topic will be body positivity. And yeah, I'm very excited to hear more and talk. Would you say that you feel you are body positive?
Absolutely. How about you? Both of you.
Verity.
Yeah. I think I have a body positive outlook on the world and everyone's body except mine.
Oh no.
You know, but yeah, I like body positivity. I'm very supportive of everyone's body and everyone's beauty. But I have a lot of trouble applying that in any way to myself. But otherwise, I would consider myself a body positive person.
Yeah, I feel similar as you, Verity. It's very difficult sometimes. I think it floats in each day differently. That I don't like some parts of my body, but usually, I would say also I'm somehow body positive.
That's good. I accept this challenge, and I hope that by the end of this episode, like you'll both be really body positive also about yourself.
Yeah, more
like,
body
myself.
positive after it.
Yeah.
Cool. Hanna, maybe I can start with you. When do you think what is body positivity? When is someone body positive?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think someone is body positive when they accept their body the way that it is without feeling this like desperate need to change it. I think that, you know, we all kind of grew up in this. Well, we all, okay, let me do this differently. We all live in a society. Yeah, like we're all in a society.
It's so true. It's so true. You really go there, Hanna.
Yeah. Just immediately, like we're in a society, and I just want to say, you know, I'm not here, you know, to shame anybody. And if you, the two of you, or anybody listening feels like, you know, there are some things wrong with your body, I just want to say I understand, because you too live in a society, and nobody can like walk away from that and pretend that doesn't exist. And we're bombarded with these images of like beauty standards, you know. But like the joke is that beauty standards change like every 10 years, and they change like also, you know, it's important not to have a very, let's say, like Western or whitewashed view of what beauty is. Even like obviously depending on different cultures, different things are quote unquote beautiful. Nobody can see my quotes, but I'm air quoting. I need the listeners to know that I am waving my hands around. But yeah, like, so what happens at the end is that we succumb to these beauty standards, and we think we need to look a certain way, and then it changes again, and they're like, oh my god, okay, now we need to look a different way. And then a few years later, we're like, oh, my bad, sorry about looking that way, I'm gonna look this other way real quick, like I'm gonna change my body again. And it's just exhausting, and it's ridiculous, and I just want everybody to know that that's not necessary. You don't need to be doing that, like, you know. And like that was it for me, when I discovered body positivity, much like I think most people, you know, on Instagram, just seeing beautiful, you know, bodies in, let's say, like in swimming suits or in underwear, bodies that, you know, that are chubby or fat, and seeing them just out there looking beautiful. I was like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. Like, is that, like in a society, like that's an option, that you can just like be happy with your body and be smiling while eating pizza and not be like sucking in your tummy and like, like trying to sit up straighter and stuff. Like, I didn't know that was like a thing that you could be. And I think that's incredible, because ultimately I think body positivity is about feeling comfortable with who you are and also not judging other people for how they look. Because, like, again, why would you? Like, beauty standards are completely arbitrary. They don't serve anyone. And ultimately, like, in terms of like getting stuff done and living your life, it really doesn't matter, does it? Like, what anybody looks like. But I think now what I'm saying is like a little bit towards the direction of body neutrality, but still it's really important to yeah, is it okay if maybe in this moment I just quickly explain body neutrality? Because I think it's really connected, right? Is that
yes.
all right? Thank you. Sorry about that. So body neutrality is believing that it doesn't matter what anybody looks like. And so what I like to do is I like to do a little combo, a little cocktail, body positivity, body neutrality. This is how I talk to myself. I go, Hanna, you're beautiful no matter what. Everybody's beautiful no matter what. But also, even if you weren't, it doesn't matter, right? That's what I like to do. So I like to do a little combination. And that's what I deeply recommend to everybody, is to really think about it both ways. Like, of course, everybody's beautiful and any which way you look is wonderful. But also, even if it wasn't, which it is, it wouldn't matter, because ultimately, in order to get whatever you need to get done, doesn't matter what anybody looks like.
Yes. I would really like to bring my trans experience into this, and how it complicates my experience of body positivity. When I was a man, I went through a period of coming to terms with my body and accepting my body as best I could, and it was a great experience for me in the long run. And I became very accepting of my body, and I would wear whatever clothes I wanted to wear. I was very, very skinny, very, 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 very skinny. People, like, skinny to the point where people, I think people thought that like I had an eating disorder, but there was nothing I could do about it, because I would try to put on weight and I couldn't. And so I felt very ugly, and by sort of men's standards, depending on which, this is where being bisexual complicates it, because I think by straight standards, a skinny man is a bit weird, but by gay standards, being the gay community has its own sort of body image standards for men. So that was good. But then I was hairy, so I wasn't like enough of a twink. And like, so that complicated, but like in the straight world, being hairy is more acceptable. So it was all very complicated, but I learned to just kind of accept these things about myself and come to terms with myself, and just be like, very fuck you. And I made an effort to, like, if anyone posted a picture of me on Facebook that I wasn't very attractive and I didn't like, I would just let myself be tagged in it, or maybe even tag myself in it, just to like enforce for myself this idea that like it doesn't matter that I don't look hot in this, that I don't look handsome, that I don't look pretty. And I did a really, really great job. But ultimately, I decided to transition and live my life as a woman. I'm a non-binary person, and I just thought, hey, let's try this. And so I transitioned, and the way in which this has made things complicated is that transitioning, a large part of transitioning involves passing, and passing isn't necessary, and passing shouldn't be necessary, but it does make life a lot easier if you pass as the gender you want to pass as. And then, so to pass as a woman, you just want to minimize your masculine features. So you start becoming very, very critical of your features, like some things that you can control, some things that you can't control. I'm quite tall, so I can't control that. There's nothing I can do except sit down. But hypothetically, I could change my facial features. I could get cosmetic surgery, and that would help me with passing. But it doesn't really help me with body positivity, because it took me a long time to like accept my face and see my face as beautiful. But that was before I transitioned, and now there's often a fear of not passing, and so there's kind of a fear of my face. There's a fear of my features, and if I see them in the mirror and they're not adequately hidden, or sort of like made up for, like it's okay that, I don't know, that my brow is heavy because I'm wearing glasses, so you can't really see. Like I may make exceptions, but that means when I don't have my glasses on, I hate my face more. And when I wear makeup, I used to wear a lot more makeup, but I realized when I was wearing a lot of makeup that I started to hate my face when I wasn't wearing makeup.
Yeah.
And so now I try to wear makeup pretty minimally, because I don't want to hate my face. I think that's bad for me. So I make an effort with that. But also, I am a YouTuber, which means I'm in front of a lot of lights, and I'm on camera on a regular basis, which is not good to be makeupless in front of lights and camera. I mean, it could be good, and maybe I should make an effort again to not wear makeup. But I think my skin would look shiny, and that would look unappealing. And so I have all these criticisms of sort of how I appear on camera that I have to deal with as well, and all those insecurities. Like watching your footage and editing it is like can be quite a painful process when you feel insecure about these kinds of features. So what I've been struggling with and trying to manage over the last few years is how to, while having a body that I have been constantly trying to reshape into something that I think is acceptable, how do I just accept my body when it is in a state of constant transition? And like, when does the transition end? At what point is this enough? You know, so that's something that I've really struggled with, and I've gone from a place of like body positivity having been really helpful to accepting my body and being comfortable with myself, to a place where actually now I'm perpetually critical of my body.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Not to bring down the mood of the room.
No, but this is the point, right? Is that, you know, it gets every one of us, you know. Society does, you know.
The society that we live in. Yeah. We keep living in it. It keeps being a society.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, because I have the same problems, and I was also thinking that sometimes if I don't use so much mirrors, or if I don't see myself in one day in a mirror or in a reflection, I forget about how my body looks like, and sometimes I don't have so much concerns about it. But then when I like go to the bathroom and see myself in the mirror, I can get sometimes really upset about some features, face features, or if I'm too fat, or if my hands are too skinny. But it's also correlated with my mood, and also people I see in movies or on the streets. And I also had one experience because for a long time, and also now sometimes I don't like my nose. And there was one time when I had a friend who was constantly making jokes about my nose, and she was doing it without thinking. She thought it was just funny and that I would understand it's also funny to me. She didn't mean anything serious about it, but it affected me because I already thought as myself that my nose is, for example, very big. So it can, sometimes be really also tough when you get some opinions from others.
I just want to take a moment and explain to our listeners that V, you have a beautiful face, and Maja, you have a beautiful face. just need everybody out there to know that, first of all.
I think we can put I think we should put pictures of the three of us on the when this is uploaded to YouTube. I think pictures should be on there, on the thumbnail.
Yeah, I agree.
So people can see,
so that people can see how beautiful we are, which is the whole point
you
of this.
judge for yourselves. No, we don't care what you think. We don't care what you think. No, I had the big nose problem. Like my high school girlfriend, my high school sweetheart, she insisted that she had like a nose fetish, and she loved big noses, and she had this weird thing about, like, I think she was trying to make me feel good about my big nose, but it drilled into me this idea that I hadn't had previously, that I have a massive nose. And for the next 20 years I've just had this deep insecurity about having a massive nose, and I think the shape of my head has changed adequately, that my nose is probably doesn't even look as big as it did when I was a teenager, but it's still there in my head. And she was trying to actually help, but she did not help.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how much it can affect us sometimes when we hear. So we all know about like negative self-talk, right? So everybody does this. And, you know, statistically, the statistics are higher for women, sadly. We all talk to ourselves and say, oh, look at you, you know, you fat piece of shit. Like, how can you be looking this way? Or like, look at your ugly hair or whatever, you know? And we talk to ourselves this way, in a way that we would never talk to a friend. We would never even talk to someone we hate, most likely, in this way. And we do it. And that's why I think it's so difficult when somebody we do like, or even if it's somebody we don't like, doesn't matter, when somebody else voices those things and you're like, oh my God, but that's my brain. Like, those are like my thoughts out in the world, and so it must be true. And I think that's what's really, really, really dangerous. And I think that's why a really important part of being body positive is not just like, you know, kind of saying like, yeah, everybody looks great, whatever, but it's also about learning how to talk to yourself in a different way. So doing positive self-talk, like that example that you were talking about, Maya, where you see yourself in the mirror, you know, like the body positive thing to say would be like, looking good, like you have a good day, mirror lady, you know what I mean? Like, that's that's kind of the way to circumvent that, I think. But it's legit, like a legitimate process of rewiring your brain.
Yeah.
I also found one definition, but I forgot if it was body positivity or some other term. But it says that let's say body positivity is practicing health in every size.
Yes.
That resonated with me because usually there's like, I remember some friends who were very into fitness and shakes. And there was this scale when in the middle you have like a perfect body, and then I think it's this body index, that says the numbers that are perfect, and then too much, and then too little.
The body mass index, and it's like relative to your height, and then your height and your gender, and then how much they reckon you should weigh. But it's bullshit, right? Like it's just like trash science. Like it's not.
No, it's like
real
100% made up, not based on
made up. It's just
fictional. Fictional, yes. I would say that all beauty standards are fiction, you know? I mean, isn't it sad to think, like, I don't know, I just don't think we can let these people win. Like, the reason that we feel the way we feel about our bodies is because some white guys in like the 1920s decided that we should, because they wanted to sell diets, you know? That makes what?
Well, often I think the narrative of what beauty is, like we said, it's fiction, and it's fiction. It's a very particular narrative based on particular standards of the era, like, you know, like pallor used to be considered more beautiful because it indicated that you never had to do any work in the fields or anything. You stayed inside all the time. So you never got a tan, and therefore you were beautiful because it conveyed that you must come from like a wealthy family, and you never did work. And so that was considered a beauty standard at the time. And now contemporary body standard images are sort of, they're sort of these insane standards that you have to work for, to the point of the detriment of your own health. Like all these superheroes and superhero movies, they're now expected to have sort of muscles to the point where they have to, I think, as I understand it, they, like Aquaman, right? Ironically, he has to dehydrate himself to make his muscles show off more than they naturally would. So he gets really, really muscly, and then he has to make his health worse so as to look like a particular standard. And that all comes from the society's narrative that it's creating for what is adequately beautiful. And I think a lot of these standards for us now are literally like, I think the standards for what is a good body always has to be something that is very hard to attain, that only a minority of people can attain. Like, I think body's beauty standard has to be something that not everyone can have. Yeah. It has to be something out of reach for most people.
Exactly, to keep us in line. And I think most of the time, hungry, to be honest with you. Like, yes. To keep us in line so that we buy more products to make us more hungry, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We should always be unhappy, shouldn't we, with ourselves? Like, we should never be satisfied, because otherwise we'll stop buying things.
Exactly. And this is my point exactly, is that you can't win. And I think something that people don't think about enough is like how much, like you said, how much body beauty standards change over the years, You'd think, okay, everything's always different, but hey, thinness has always been in. No, not at all, my friends. Not at all. And it used to be a sign of wealth that you weren't working in the fields and you were really, getting enough food if you looked nice and round. So the kind of epitome of beauty was to be kind of round and soft. And we'd think that was a really long time ago, but for example, even in the 1940s, people were still selling pills and protein bars to add, again, I'm air quoting people, to add healthy kilograms that look attractive onto people, So we're not just talking about some Victorian era or something. We're talking about really, really recently. We're talking about in our grandparents' lifetimes, that was still something that was desirable. And even today, if we look at where we are right now, I would say that right now the beauty standard is kind of to have really big boobs and a big butt, and then a small tummy. But even so, that's still a lot of curves that we're actually really big fans of as a society, and we're really propagating. Whereas in the 90s, when I was a kid, it was really popular to be to be really, really thin. So have a flat chest, have a flat butt, have basically no curves. And already that, in our lifetimes when we're quite young, I'm 27, even that has majorly changed, So I think even if you are chasing this ideal beauty standard, it's so important to remember that it's gonna change. And so what are we gonna do? We're gonna just spend our lives reading, refreshing our Instagram feeds to see what's sexy today. You know what I mean? Even within that, you can't win. And then you look at some people who 100% fit the beauty standard of today, someone for example, Kim Kardashian, and they're also using Photoshop, and they're also not posting their real photos because they're also buying followers and all this because they also feel insecure. And that's the point, right? Is even if you have the quote unquote ideal body, first of all, you're only going to have it for a couple of years, and then society is going to be never mind, change it all again. And even if you do change it all the time and are 100% up to speed, that's only a very whitewashed standard. And then you go to another culture and you're again going to be not beautiful, quote unquote. And so it just makes no sense. I just feel that it doesn't it's legitimately not logical to be chasing these standards, because the internal critic and this negative self-talk is so strong that even the people who have quote unquote achieved this level, like the epitome of beauty, are actually also insecure and are also using Photoshop and are also like tucking their tummy in when it's time for a picture, are also using like a higher angle when it's time for a picture, are also like distorting it in some way. And I think that just the fact that we feel a need to do that is really, really sad. I don't have any other words for it. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's a commodification of our bodies, isn't it? And
Yes.
I think, like, obviously, bodies have been commodified in various ways, particularly women's bodies, for, I don't know, as long as, well, all of history, really. But I think the extent to which our bodies are commodified has been enhanced by social media, because, and especially stuff like Instagram, where attention is currency on the internet, you know. And you will obtain the most attention for looking a particular way. So you're encouraged as much as possible to commodify your body, and social media sites like Instagram and Facebook, they want you to produce what you're really doing is you're producing content for their advertisers, so that you're, in a way, you're sort of like hired for free by them to produce content for their website. And the way that you're going to get the most attention and therefore help them push the most advertisements is by commodifying your own body.
Absolutely. I mean, the psychology of this is really interesting. I really wish that I had like some proper statistics for this, but I just remember learning like in high school, actually, and in a psychology class about an experiment. And I really hope somebody can verify, like, you know, because I really want to quote the scientists here, but I don't know. This is what I remember, and I think it's really relevant. What I remember is that they did an experiment where they had two groups, and one group had a scientist leading them that was like fulfilling beauty, societal beauty standards at the time. So I believe that the scientist had like blue eyes and like dark hair and was very well dressed. And then there was another scientist who was a bit more casually dressed and a bit more like, let's say, quote unquote, scruffy looking, and kind of had like greasy hair and just like looked a little different. And so what happened in the experiment is that the scientist that fulfilled the beauty standards of the time got people like trusted him more, they engaged with him more, they spent more time on the experiment, they got like better results, whereas the other group kind of wanted to get out of there quickly. They weren't really trusting, they weren't like attentive as much, they weren't willing to like follow as many instructions. And I think, you know, just like in every part of society, we are complicit in that. I think we have, you know, all of us have this inherent bias if somebody's like fulfills beauty standards, right? Some people like to say conventionally attractive, but I hate that term because, like, what is that? Somebody tell me, what does that mean? What does it mean to be conventionally attractive? What is the convention? That's ridiculous. I don't like talking about conventionally attractive. I like talking about beauty standards because that's what they are. They're just beauty standards and they change everywhere, right? And so if someone's fulfilling beauty standards, we tend to, you know, maybe trust them more or be more interested to engage with them. And I think that's also an issue, is that we kind of need to look within ourselves and look at our own bias, because I have to admit that in my own dating history, for example, I have been deceived by looks before, where I was like, oh, this person seems really nice. And then I was like, Hanna, but why? Why do they seem really nice? And then it's like, oh, because of what they look like, not because of what they're actually saying and the actual character that they have. And I think that's something that we really need to be like more vigilant about, to just like not judge people for how they look, even in a positive way, right? Which brings me to a lot of positive stereotypes. about people who, you know, are very big part of the body positive community, for example, fat people or chubby people. There is a certain positive stereotype that, you know, if someone's fat, either they need to be kind of put away and like kind of, you know, put away from society, you know, like nobody wants to see that. You just like hang out in your, just like stay in your room, stay in your couch, you know, God forbid you like come into the gym. We don't want to see that, but like you have to go to the gym because like you have to work out more, but like we can't see that, right? We're not ready to see that. We're not going to make workout clothes for you. We're not going to make stuff that fits you. Like we're not going to like accept you into society, but still like please like, you know, change your body and move your body, but like not in front of us, right? So that's already like a total catch-22 like ridiculous situation. And I think that's one option. And the other option is to use a positive stereotype and say, well, you know what, fat people are hilarious, they're funny, ha, great. Or maybe fat people are like, they're really warm and loving, right? And skinny people are like a little bit bitchy, right? So what I'm saying is even within that, I think we have a lot of inherent biases, because like God forbid, you know, fat people could be sexy or like intelligent or something else than like warm, loving, or funny, right? Or of course lazy, which is another really, really big stereotype. So I think that, you know, what's happening here is that we're just putting like bias upon bias upon bias upon bias. And the only way to fight is to accept everyone. That's the only, I really don't see any other way to fight.
Yeah, I think there probably is a distinguishable difference between when you meet someone and you understand that they are attractive based on particular beauty standards, and when you meet someone and you're attracted to them just based on that sort of internal feeling of attraction, that internal pull. Yeah, and it can be quite trippy when you meet someone who's like unbelievably beautiful, but it's the sort of the conventional standards and not necessarily that you are like attracted to them. Yeah, you bring something to that based on what you I don't know, you think society sort of expects you, how society expects you to behave, and your understanding of the currency of their beauty.
I also was thinking while you were talking about fashion and how it actually all the images and everything they use Photoshops, and also I was reading one article about plus size models and how for them they use additional padding just to make curves more nicer. So it's already here. You after this you get the image that is not real when you see the person. So people who see images get not the right idea of that's why also it's so difficult to achieve these beauty standards, and it's maybe that's why also never ending goal, never hard to achieve.
I agree. I mean, I think basically you can't win, you know, like just whatever you do, there's just really no way to win. And I think there's a lot of this kind of thing that we tell ourselves. We're like, well, when I'll have this certain body, then I can wear this outfit, or like then I can go to this place, or then I can ask this cute person out, or then I can flirt with this person. And it's you know, I think if any, like the main message for me that I got out of body positivity is like, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for anything to change. You can just like live your life right now and like, you know, ask out whoever you want and go to any kind of party you want and wear any kind of clothing you want, because nobody should be telling you, you know, how to look or how to dress, especially not you. Like we especially shouldn't be doing this to ourselves. And I think that, so what you tapped into here, Maja, is really interesting. The idea of like that that imagery most of the time isn't real. And there are a lot of, again, I don't know them by heart, but there are a lot of statistics on this, and they're really, really high. Again, somebody check me, but I'm talking about like 80% or something of imagery is not real online, right? Or in articles or anywhere, of people, right? And that's crazy. That is a crazy high number. And again, feel free to check me. Even if it's not that high, it's too high. Whatever number it is, it's too high. And what happens is as well that there's no need to like write a disclaimer. Like there's no need to be like, hey, just so y'all know, like there's extra padding in these photos. Or like, hey, just so y'all know, like we photoshopped stretch marks out of this. Hey, just so y'all know, like, you know, these the person in this photograph actually didn't sleep at all and has really dark circles under their eyes, but you can't see it. Or hey, just so you know, like this person has wrinkles, but you can't see them. Like, and I think that's part of the deceit as well, which I find really difficult, is not only is this stuff happening and being kind of promoted as like real life and real people and how what people really look like, but there's also no kind of like disclaimer. I mean, you know, even in your car, right? It says like objects maybe, you know, further or closer. I don't drive, but further or closer than they appear, you know? And all I'm asking is just for a little disclaimer on these things, especially for young people, especially for young girls, to be aware that these standards that we're propagating aren't particularly attainable. Like V really beautifully said, it's only attainable for a very, 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 very small group of people. And even that maybe wouldn't even be attainable for a prolonged period of time. And even that is like something that most likely, you know, most of the time isn't real. And I think that's really tough. And yeah, of course, if you're fat, maybe you're not fat enough to really be plus size, you know. If you're thin, you're never thin enough, right? Never, right? Or maybe you're in between. Like I feel like my body is the type of body where like I benefit from a lot of thin privilege in the sense that I can shop in really big chain stores, like for example H&M and Zara. I can still find stuff in there that will fit me, whereas a lot of my really beautiful and sexy, chubby and fat friends can't find anything in there for them. Like there's just nothing, there's no point of stepping into the store. And so I'm in this weird place where like I can go into those places and I really benefit from this privilege of being thin, but at the same time, you know, I can only wear things that are L or XL, and a lot of the times they don't have my size. And also I sometimes don't fit into the plus size category, but I also, you know, but I'm kind of at the beginning of it. And that's also really tough because I for a long time when I first gained a considerable amount of weight in kind of a short period of time, I really felt like I was like, where am I gonna get clothes? Like who is making stuff for me that's not just like a brown paper bag that just like sags off you, you know? Like how can I, like when I was thinner, I used to look so cute, I used to have all these cute dresses, like where can I find those things again? And it was a really big process of talking to a lot of my, like I said, my beautiful fat friends, of being like, hey, like where do y'all shop? Like where can we go? And you know, there are these very specific nooks and crannies of the online community that kind of have found these places, but it's not like regular. It's not like you can just step into a store and get stuff that's going to work for you. And I'm not saying that you can if you're a thin person, not at all. I think everybody has really special features that clothing just doesn't accommodate for, because clothing is always in like a very set kind of size. So there's, you know, there's expected you have a certain bust, a certain waist, a certain, you know what I mean? And it's all from the same, like my friend who sews, she says that it's all like the same measurements that basically every company gets. And I find that so crazy. Like, what if you have really big tits, like me, for example? What are you going to do, you know? Or what if you have a really flat chest? Where are you going to go? Like, what's up, you know? What are we going to do? Like, we're all going to get, like, seamstresses, like it's the 1800s. We're going to have somebody dress us every morning. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do? Like, and I just, like, oh, the amount of times that I wish that I was, like, living with a seamstress, you wouldn't believe. But I'm saying I feel like we're kind of going back in time where, like, now we need to learn how to sew, and we need to like go back to really kind of archaic ways of dealing with this, because nobody really fits into these body standards, and it's hard to kind of find a place. And I don't just mean in society, but I also mean in the fashion industry, to find a place that would kind of accommodate everybody and every size. Like, for example, I have a friend who's really tall, and she's a woman, and she finds it so difficult to find clothes. It's such a process every time, you know? Like, how is this normal? How are we just, what is the fashion industry thinking? You're thinking everybody's the same weight and the same height? What? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, just step onto the street right now. Everybody looks different. That's the point.
Is part of it fast fashion and the issue of sort of you're not really expected, or they don't want you to be able to really invest in your clothes in the long term? Like hundreds of years ago, people would have, you'd have a few items of clothing and you'd want to wear them for most of your life, and they would specifically be for you. And now it's sort of everything's seasonal, and you're not expected to invest in clothes in a very long-term way, because that's not in the interest of the industry. We keep coming back to capitalism. I feel that's the problem.
Absolutely.
We need to destroy capitalism, clearly.
I'm honestly afraid that when we say society, we actually mean capitalism. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, you're totally right that this is about commodification, like you said, B. Like, what I mean by that is that people decided they're going to make money off these insecurities, right? So people decided they're going to sell diet pills, and they're going to sell, clothing that's inherently like not well-fitting or not comfortable or not, not possible to wear over a prolonged period of time, and so on. Like, just think about like the concept of heels. What's going on? And there are so many things. I mean, we can talk about shaving creams, razors. It's all of this stuff. Makeup, right? Hair products, like all of these beauty products. It's all designed for us to spend money and just have like a drawer where we just like collect more and more shit that's gonna like quote unquote make us beautiful, and then the next week something else is needed to make you beautiful, and then you put that in your drawer and you just collect this lifetime of shit of products that don't really help you, and definitely don't help your mental health and your self-esteem. And I think here we kind of come back to the topic of health. So I just want to do like a public service announcement and say nobody really cares about your health, okay? The people who tell me that like I look unhealthy because of my weight are not people who are like slapping cigarettes and alcohol out of everybody's hand on the street and like yelling at anybody that is like engaging in any activity that's unhealthy. You know why? Because smoking looks cool, drinking looks cool, and being fat does not, quote unquote, look cool. And so we talk about, I had a family member tell me in this very concerned way when I gained weight, like, oh my God, Hanna, like you were like, I can't sleep at night because I worry so much for your health. Which, yeah, this happened to me. On an airplane as well, where I couldn't escape, Where can you go on an airplane, Just got to listen to that. So yeah, I had a family member tell me that, and
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to share my weight gain story, but before I do, I just want to kind of do a disclaimer and say that it doesn't matter why anybody gains weight, and there are no like cool reasons and uncool reasons. You know what I mean? Like whatever you're doing, I just want to say right now, whatever you did, whatever the reason is, that's great. It's good for you. You look great. Doesn't matter. But for me particularly, I had a hormonal situation where I was switching. I was like trying out different contraceptives, and I was switching them around because I was traveling, and so the contraceptives that I had in Slovenia weren't available there, so I had to like go on another one and then go back to mine, and it was just like a mess, and I just gained a bunch of weight real quick, like in a couple months, real quick. And then the reactions started coming in from family members, from friends, from acquaintances, from really like just anybody, of being like, oh my God, Hanna, what happened? Are you well? What has happened to you? And people being very, quote unquote, concerned, for my health. And then, which is really, really, really funny because obviously it wasn't an issue of health. And these are all people who are either like, you know, chain smokers or drink every day or and so on, and partaking tons of like unhealthy habits, you know? And it's just like, well, I don't think that when we talk about health in this way, we're actually being really, really superficial. I don't think we're talking about health. And I think we're talking about what people look like. And I think that if these people, for example, this family member that said this to me, I think that if they saw me eating a big piece of cake and then a thin person eating their 5th big piece of cake, you know, it would be totally fine for that thin person, right? Because they look healthy, quote unquote, right? And it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter how we feel or, you know, what our actual doctors say or what's actually going on. But, you know, doctors have sadly a lot of bias as well, much to my dismay. But what I mean is nobody's really looking at your medical chart and like analyzing your mental and physical health and like looking at your stress levels and like seeing what's good for you. You know, nobody's doing that. People just assume that health looks a certain way. And I think that's also a really important myth to dispel. And this myth is propagated exactly by the people who invented BMI, by the people who invented diets, the people who keep selling diets, you know? I just want to say that there's this app going around right now called Noom. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's on Instagram mostly, and their whole pitch is like, we're not a diet. We just help you like eat and then lose weight. It's like, that's a diet. That's what a diet is. Like anybody that's promoting restrictive eating or restricting what you eat in any way, that's a diet, my friends. Okay, you don't need to be doing that. If you need to do what's right for you, and nobody, and like this was a really tough thing for me to accept, that nobody really cares about your health. People care about looking healthy. Like I could, you know, I like not sleep for a month, right? And just put on some nice makeup and look thin, and everybody would be like, oh my God, you look amazing, right? Nobody would be like, hey, you're not getting enough sleep. You know, nobody cares about that. Not really.
Well, I had a bit similar but opposite. My grandma was always saying when she saw me that if I'm eating enough, that I'm living very unhealthy lifestyle, that she sees that my clothes are too big and I'm getting skinnier and I should eat more. So I feel this struggle.
Yeah, just quick PSA, you know,
Yeah.
never tell anybody what to eat ever in anything. So thank you. That is all. Just
Yeah.
never tell anybody what to eat
Yeah.
so much in any direction.
I had, when I was very skinny, I had a family member who would always make fun of my weight for being too skinny and how that looked on my body. And as soon as I gained weight, there was no moment where my weight became good to that person.
Of course.
But at some point, it suddenly became very bad. And it was like, now you're too fat. So I went from, and I think really it's just, I don't know, I think I have a funny, my body is, I don't know, I don't think I could ever look the way that anyone, man or woman, is like supposed to look. Just the shape of my body is the shape of my body. It's particular to me. So like I look unacceptable when I'm skinny. I look unacceptable when I put on weight, and it's just it's across the board unacceptable. But yeah, so that's fun knowing that you just can't win ever.
Yeah, you can't win, but what's really liberating about that is that you don't need to try. You don't need to try anymore. You don't need to try to win because you can't. So you can just like live your life and, you know, put on a swimsuit and go swimming, you know, have fun. You know, I mean, that's, you know, we don't.
Yeah, but then my partner and I were at the beach way back in, when was it, 2019, and like when it was acceptable to do such things. We were at the beach and we both had hairy legs, and some girls walked past us and pointed and laughed at us.
That's all.
And that's, yeah, and it's like, I like, as much as I believe, yes, it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter, and if I were just around my friends, I just wouldn't care. And when I am just around my friends, I don't care. But knowing that going to the beach, like, you run the risk of being made fun of for something like that is pretty defeating, and it always ends up being a choice. For me, like, do I want people to stare at me while I'm walking down the street in a short skirt, or do I want to make the statement and be body positive and feel good about myself and just have like hairy legs or whatever, or do I just want to avoid the trouble and shave my legs and not have to worry that people are staring at me and making comments? And that's a hard, I mean, we all just have to make that choice based on our circumstances. And I think if I were in sort of a better circumstance in life, I might feel more comfortable taking those sort of risks and flipping people off and just feeling good and saying fuck you. But sometimes you just don't have the energy to fight the patriarchy or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just want you to know that I totally get that. And I think, like you said, it's really this like assessment, like you said, it was a risk. And I think that's so sad. And it's so true that it is a risk to exist in your body and go for a goddamn walk. Like, that breaks my heart that we need to feel like, oh, I'm taking a risk now and I got to be strong and I got to be ready, like fight the patriarchy and capitalism and society and like these douchebags, you know, because people are going to say shit and I need to be ready. And that breaks my heart. It's really sad because there isn't that much of a community IRL, I would say, that would be so body accepting. I think it's a very specific community that exists online. But the way that you have like the patriarchy has meetups, right? Where they talk about what's beautiful and what's not, right? We have like all kinds of conventions, like beauty conventions, you know, modeling. We have all kinds of things that exist, but there's no place. There's all kinds of like, you know, diet meetups where people sit around and talk about how ugly they are and how they need to lose weight, right? Like there's all kinds of communities like that, but there's not a community where you can come and just walk around in your crop top and your, you know, and your hairy legs out and just be like, what's up, everybody? And everybody be like, you look beautiful. And you're like, yeah, you all look beautiful as well. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like there's no place to do that. And I think that's really tough. And that, especially now during COVID, the body positivity movement has, you know, since approximately 2012 been online anyway. But, you know, now it's really just online. And I think we would all, you know, we could all really use like an IRL reminder of what it's like to have people around that just don't say shit like that and that just accept you. And I think that's so hard to find.
Yeah, I think that's. I actually have a study pulled up here.
Perfect.
Do lesbian women have better body image comparisons with heterosexual women and model of lesbian specific factors? And lesbian women reported in this study less body dissatisfaction than heterosexual women, and lesbian women reported a larger ideal body size than heterosexual women did. And this is one of the interesting things about one of the interesting things about the LGBT community. There are so many, but one interesting thing is lesbians just have better body image, and then gay men tend to have worse body image and higher rates of eating disorders. And yeah, it's wild, and it's I mean, it quite obviously comes down to the male gaze, doesn't it? Not GAYS, the male gaze, GAZE, right? The male gaze, the male gaze of the male gaze, is what it comes down to. Lesbians don't have the stress caused by being subject to the male gaze with a Y, and gay men absolutely do constantly. They internalize it, they project it onto one another, and yeah, it's really tragic. But that's I don't even know what to do about that. I don't know what that's just a tragic truth. But great for lesbians. Good for them. Good for lesbians. Well done, lesbians.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment and say that just because I think it's important to kind of always credit people. So the male gaze is a term that was coined by Laura Mulvey when she was talking about how the camera treats women in film. And so what we're talking about here is we're talking about a typical shot that'll start, for example, at the legs, go up the bare legs, kind of almost, up the skirt, and then, past the tits and then onto the face. And there are many ways in which, in film, we also film women in a different way, in a more sexualized way, and in a more judgmental way. And I think that then kind of, that always happens, right? Is that film and media transcend into life. And then we're so used to these images. I again have another statistic that I don't really have the numbers for, but I was reading, so I can say the source, in this book by Megan Jane Krabi. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Body Positive Power. She mentions this study, which again, I don't know exactly. But basically, I believe it's in the 90s that there were there was this community, I'm not sure which country it was, but it definitely wasn't here. And in this country, people didn't have any televisions, and they didn't have they weren't used to watching movies or anything like that. And then the moment they got televisions, a couple of years later, they did a survey and they found that 90% of the girls were trying to diet and were trying to change their bodies. And I think that is just staggering. I think we really underestimate all the time. And I'm a filmmaker and I still underestimate the power of media. I don't know if there's anything in this world more powerful, to be honest, in terms of how it teaches us to view ourselves. And that is staggering, right? They just saw it. It wasn't like they saw a TV that was, that had particular diet pill advertisement or anything like that. No, it was just a TV that just had skinny white people in every show and every movie. And they were like, oh, there must be something wrong with how I look if I don't look that way, and what can I do to then look that way. And I think there are two issues here. One is, of course, that media is making us feel terrible and not, and we don't show body diversity enough in media, and so we show the world as if it's all skinny white people, which is again, please just step outside, look at any street in any city in the whole wide world. It's not all skinny white people. I hate to break it to society. That's not what the world looks like. And if film is supposed to mimic life, that's a really irresponsible thing that we are doing as filmmakers, that we're saying yep, this is just what everybody looks like. Here you go. This is a realistic representation of a room of people. No way. These people are all conforming to a really, really high beauty standard. How is this possible? You know how it's possible? You had an agent, you had a scout, you saw their pictures, you invited them there, right? So I think that's issue number one. Please continue. Go ahead, V, if you have something. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of narrative fiction, I think we also have this issue of how we with visual mediums like film, you use bodies and faces, you can do as shorthand for characterization. So if you want to convey that someone is evil, hire someone who's ugly and has a frown, has a perpetual frown or whatever, and and that's giving you shorthand for don't trust this character. This is a nasty character, as one example. And so we tend to, I think, cast characters based on how we perceive that actor's features and whether or not they can convey easily whether or not the audience is meant to like the character, whether they're trustworthy, whether they're supposed to be beautiful, and that reinforces how we perceive those people, how we perceive people who are not, well, who we decide is beautiful, who we decide is good, and who we decide is trustworthy.
Yeah.
It's very difficult when people are attracted to different body types to really set what is beautiful and what is attractive. I think you can't put just one definition of beauty into the space.
Exactly. That's why I think it's really important to just think of everything as beautiful.
I sometimes feel like with body positivity that I see on the internet, like when someone is trying to sort of do like fat positivity, and they'll have someone who is very fat, but they will still live up to a particular standard of beauty. You know, like it can't be any fat person. It needs to be a fat person who has the face of a model, and their fatness is acceptable.
Yes.
Which just, I think that tends to complicate things as well. But there's like body image standards for body positivity as well, kind of.
Absolutely. That's why, it would be really good to, well, okay, the only way to have ethical beauty standards is to have no beauty standards, right? First of all, whether, and so it's quite ironic that can happen in the body positivity community, but at the same time, I do understand this need to feel attractive, this need to feel accepted and appreciated by society. And I think just showing your body as a fat person is so goddamn hard that I fully understand that, you'd want to do that, but also put makeup on your face, or you'd want to do that, but use a higher angle, or you'd want to do that, but like, curl your hair, for example. Do you know what I mean? I get what you're saying. But
I don't think that's not quite what I'm saying. I think like a fat person is expected, in order to be the kind of fat person that people want to see in body positivity, they have to be a particular fat person who already has a more conventionally beautiful face. Like you can't be fat and quote unquote ugly. Like you kind of have to pick one to be sort of worthy of sort of being going viral and getting enough attention. Like there's only this isn't like to criticize anyone. Like there's nothing wrong with like there's nothing wrong with a fat person with the face of a model. That's not what I'm saying. But where we bring attention to people with diverse bodies, it's usually when there are sort of minimal exceptions happening. So you can be fat, but like you can only have a particular kind of face that most fat people won't have. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not like, and it's not to criticize anyone who is uploading their pictures and showing themselves off. It's just how I think we, and by we I sort of mean the mass of people on the internet, we will promote people as the most acceptable version of this minority or this minority body, as long as there are minimal exceptions to the standard of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about media and movies, do you have like your favorite movies that you think there are like characters that has like nice representations of all body types?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe Booksmart or Euphoria.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, I have two, and it's Booksmart and Euphoria. So Booksmart is a wonderful, wonderful film. and Euphoria is a wonderful, wonderful show, and they both have great representations. But before we get deep into it, I just want to say that I really try to lately watch everything that comes out that kind of looks like it's going to be body positive, and I'm really saddened to say that these films are usually like, for example, the film Britney Goes for a Run, which is about this girl who exists in a beautiful fat body, really, 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 really beautiful woman, who then kind of decides that she's going to run a marathon, and the whole arc is about her losing weight, and then people liking that, and then at the end she's kind of like, oh, maybe I should have like accepted bodies earlier. And that's kind of the message of the film, and I have found that a couple of times. I have more examples, but I don't want to, like, shit talk too many. But I have found a lot of examples of this kind of narrative where it's like this typical kind of let's say redemption arc, but used for dieting, and then at the end, oh, surprise twist, she was also pretty before. Have a good night. It's like, what? Like, body positivity being kind of used as like a twist or like a surprise ending or like a little bit of character development at the end. And I understand that. Like, of course, body positivity in the real world as a person can be like a way that you develop your own character, and the way that you eventually, over years and years of positive self-talk, finally accept yourself. And I get that, but it's like, then why did we teach people for like an hour and a half that all of this stuff was good? And that, it was really good that she was dieting and she was getting rewarded for it and everything was amazing. And then, oh, okay, actually, you know what? Like, I was fine before too. Yeah. Like, that's, I don't think that's really body positive. And I think we need to really ask ourselves what kind of message we're sending. And also, I think it's really important to, I'm going to look up which film it is, but I saw a wonderful film where there was a fat character that, like, it just wasn't part of the story that she was fat. Because I think that's a really big thing that happens as well, is that you have a fat character and then that becomes like, that's their story arc, is like just about how fat they are and what they're going to do about how fat they are. And then they either do or don't do something about it, but it's all about that. And I find that really difficult. Like, for example, in the show This Is Us, that famously has a really beautiful fat character. What they did is they made the whole arc about that. And then eventually, in later seasons, they made that character have a baby, and now it's all about like her as a mother and her as a singer and her aspirations and her career. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Why did we need like 3 seasons of talking about how fat she is, so that now we finally can get to the point where we don't have to talk about it anymore? And what I want to see is, I want to see fat people in leading roles doing the same type of stuff that skinny people are doing, because while Euphoria is a beautiful example, definitely the only chubby character has a huge arc about being chubby, to be honest. Like, I'm sorry to say, but that's the arc.
Yeah, I feel like if someone's fat, then they have to have a whole story about being fat. But like, if someone is incredibly beautiful, nothing about the narrative is impacted by how beautiful they are. You know what I mean? Like, like most television and most films, they star people who are unbelievably beautiful. They're fucking supermodels, and everyone will just act like they're just average, and they'll be like, "Oh, dating is so tough. No one wants to date me," and it's like, everyone wants to date you, fucking lunatic. Like, there's like no doubt. Obviously, in real life, if they looked like that, because they do look like that in real life, they would be extremely successful and they would be models because they are models in real life. But in the films, they just act like being that beautiful doesn't have any impact on your existence. And it's like unless you are exceptional in some way, like you're fat or something, or that movie about that girl who's really tall, and like the whole movie is about how she's tall and how she's and she's like oppressed because she's tall, and that's the whole that is the narrative. That's everything. It's just she's tall. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I looked up which movie I'm talking about. I'm talking about a movie called Skin, which Danielle McDonald is in, and Danielle McDonald is a wonderful, beautiful actress who did a lot of who's kind of really established herself as you know, as a fat actress who's just unapologetically fat, thank God. And but she's done a movie or two where that was her arc, where that's what it was about. And then she was in this film Skin, which is about, you know, Jamie Bell's character who plays this skinhead who tries to reform and like not be a skinhead anymore. And she just plays his girlfriend, and they have fights and they have stuff going on in their relationship, and she wants him to get out of this Nazi circle. And that is it. And she's just like a feisty, fiery mother. And I remember seeing that film when it came out a couple years back, and I was like, wow, I have never in my life seen this before. Somebody being fat and that not being like one word in the plot, you know. And Jamie Bell is like famously very, very skinny. And so they, you know, they are a very you know, beauty standards also tell us that you can't be, as a woman, you can't be like bigger than your partner, right? If anybody's going to be the fat one, it should be the guy. And so seeing that pairing of like Jamie Bell and Danielle McDonald together, and them just be like everybody, the whole movie, like, you know, Nazis, right? They're Nazi characters, but they're all fine with it and nobody comments on it in any way. And I was just like, yes. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I just want to see it not be part of the story. Like, for example, I mean, we have so many examples of this, right? Like Lena Dunham. Well, I don't know if Lena Dunham is an example of this, actually. I think I'm going to stop myself right away and say that I'm going to delete that. I'm going to take that back. I don't think Lena Dunham is that example, because I think she is unapologetic and I think she is really body positive. But for example, Rebel Wilson is a really big example of that, who has now even, you know, on top of that, lost weight. And now that's kind of all she talks about and all anybody in the press talks about. And that's a real bummer, you know. That's such a shame, because she was even making her own clothing line and, like, you know, making the fashion industry more body inclusive and body positive. And then, you know, but she still, many times her body was used as a joke, and that's you know, that's sad to see.
Yeah, this is slightly different, but in trans media, there's kind of a trope in television where trans women will be in like medical dramas, but it will turn out that like the twist has to be about their transness, and it's specifically like their hormones are killing them or something like that. And
Yeah,
there's just like there's
absolutely.
numerous cases where it has to be about, oh no, their transness is actually
Exactly. That's a really do you V, do you want to hear about where I think that comes from?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I think it comes from the Hays Code. Are you familiar with the Hays Code?
From the like film production censorship stuff from the 1930s.
But yeah, the Hays Code basically just said what you can and can't do in cinema. And one of the points of the Hays Code was that if you are going to have LGBTQ plus characters, you can't show it in a positive way. And so then this trope formed where like LGBTQ plus characters kept getting killed off. Like they would sometimes even have like a really nice time in the movie, like everything would be good, and then they just die. You know, like sometimes their transness or their queerness would be part of the narrative of why they die, and sometimes it wouldn't. And it blows my mind that to this day, filmmakers and screenwriters and producers and everybody else involved are still making these decisions. And it's like, yo, the Hays Code is over, my friends. Like, we don't need to do this anymore. Like, who is this serving? I don't understand. And it blows my mind that something like that something that is, you know, literally censorship is still like voluntarily being used by people today.
Yeah, I feel like they did it in the Danish Girl, where she like, because the Danish Girl is not very historically accurate, right? Like it's not, and that's an unfortunate thing about like I think in generally people's idea of like history comes from fictional retellings of stories. Like everyone's understanding of what happened with the Titanic comes from the movie Titanic, right? More than it does like them studying what happened. People don't really study what happened with the Titanic. And with the Danish Girl, I remember reading about what actually happened to Lily Elba and what happened to the movie. And in the movie, they sort of have her like she rushes into transitioning and transitions herself to death, which is not really quite what happened, and it had more to do with sort of the incompetence of doctors who made promises that they couldn't keep. And in the movie, it's portrayed as her she couldn't help herself, forcing herself to transition way too quickly when she should have slowed down. And it's just, so her transness kills her in the end. And yeah, I mean that goes back to but I think even before the Hays Code, like if you had a character, well, I don't know. I'm just thinking. I was just reading Carmilla, the original short story Carmilla, about the lesbian vampire, and of course she has to die at the end, right? And that's her punishment for being a lesbian. So I don't know if, and that's from the 1870s, and that sort of like you have to be punished for your transgression. So it definitely goes back further than the Hays Code, but maybe the Hays Code is where you started to get to tell a story that's kind of positive, but they still have to be punished at the end.
Yeah, I wish like the history of literature was a little bit more my sector, but I can say that film is my sector, and I can say that in the 1920s when film originated, nobody was worrying about that. You had lots of you had lots of cross-dressing, you had lots of trans characters, you had lesbian characters, you had gay characters. It was all beautiful, and when we were making these kind of first short experimental films, nobody was worrying about that. Nobody was self-censoring in this way. And I think that's something that came into play, like you said, in the 30s, a little bit later, when there was, again, capitalism, money involved, right? When there was money involved, and producers like Hays were starting to think about what's going to sell tickets and what's going to get butts in seats. And again, a bunch of white guys decided that LGBTQ plus characters were not going to be those things. That would make money, which even in itself is a fallacy. Even that's wrong, right? Like LGBTQ plus movies sell, and they sell very well. Like,
yeah. But you want to be able to give the audience sort of something that will be titillating and exciting for them. Like the audience wants to see lesbians. 1960s men wanted to see lesbians, but the lesbian has to die at the end. Like she needs the punishment at the end. Yeah. So like you do want to see that stuff, but to sort of keep it in check culturally, you have to punish the character ultimately. Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned the Danish girl. That was really deeply disappointing. I remember I remember very vividly that at the end I just like started I just like stormed out, and I was like I couldn't stop talking about this for like a week, and I was just like yelling at everybody about this. But I don't think we need to look as far as Hollywood to see examples of this. We have Slovenian examples of this in our own industry, which is all I'm going to say. That's as much as I'll say about that. But nobody is safe, is my point.
I would maybe also mention in previous episode with Vi and Ela, we talked about Shira. And this is maybe also one of the TV shows where different body types are portrayed, and there is no attention to their bodies, and that's also nice, like for people, children, to see.
Yeah, kids need to see that. Yeah, I really like that.
And episodes, but I like that too. Yeah, that's really cool. Wish more people did that.
I also wanted to add before, when you were talking about body hair, that I had similar situations and feelings, and now when I am volunteering here in Netherlands, and when we are like hanging out, and if I wear like trousers where you can see like a bit of hairy legs, I'm like feeling very brave, and at the same time very afraid what people will thought about when they will see my legs. So yeah. I feel it. And
Yeah, thank
I
you for
still
sharing.
haven't gotten to the beach, so that's
Yeah.
still one of the things I have to do.
Yeah, the beach is a
Yeah.
really good goal to have. Yeah.
So another question I have is the topic about diet cultures. What do you feel about it? Because I also read one article about how some people are shaming people who goes on a diet, and also that people feel the need to go on diets.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I'm so glad you asked. What a great question. um, thank you. Well, okay. So the diet industry, when we talk about society and we talk about capitalism, we're also mostly talking about the diet industry. And we're talking about people who decided to commodify the fact that you feel bad about yourself by telling you you need to lose weight. And again, you can never, I feel like you can never be thin enough. I used to live in a much skinnier body than I do now, and even then people were always telling me to lose weight. My whole life people have been telling me to lose weight, because since puberty I've had big tits, and I think that that's something that can look chubby, even when my tummy was small and my face was not round and stuff like that. Well, my face was always round. I'm not talking about like changing my bone structure, excuse me. I just mean like I didn't have this like chubby face that I do now. And so I'll give an example of this. I was talking to a friend one time, and I said, you know what, I'm going to the hairdressers and my face looks a little different. It's much rounder now because I've gained some weight. This was like after traveling and after coming back home when lockdown was starting. So this person had not seen me in like a year. And so I was like, just so you know, I look a little different. And like, I'm just wondering, because this friend of mine also had a chubby face. And I was just wondering, what do you think is like the best hairstyle, for my face, right? And I was thinking I should get these framing bits on the side of my face to look, I think that would look really pretty, and they could like sit on my chubby cheeks, and that would look really cute, right? And then she said to me, she goes, well, I bet it's all those cakes that you're posted on Instagram, and I bet it's, and I was like, well, that really wasn't the question, right? I'm not like confused as to why I look the way I look, first of all. Second of all, it's not the case. It's the hormones, but none of your business. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's a really good representation of where we're at as a society. This kind of idea that if you just mention your weight, someone's gonna come in and want to talk to you about dieting and want to talk to you about why you are the way you are. Oh, just eat less cake and like you can, and then you won't have to worry about your haircut. And it's like, that's not even connected. I need to cut my hair anyway. And I'm just wondering about what you think would look cute on me. And so I find that really tough. I think most people who tell anybody to diet are insecure about their own weight, which is really sad. I think, I don't have a statistic for this, but this is just my observation, that anybody who talks to me about my weight are people who either have a similar weight to me, or are people who have struggled with eating disorders and body image their whole lives. Like legit, legit. Like it's so correlated. It's so correlated. And so I think a big fallacy with dieting is this idea that it works. I just want to explain right now, maybe even to well, of course, to our listeners, but also maybe to you too, if you may not be aware, because it's something that I think is not spoken about enough. But diets don't work. If your goal is to lose weight, don't go on a diet. If you diet, again, somebody check my stats, but I believe it's 95% of the time, 5 years later, you will weigh more than when you started the diet. Because what happened is your body is like, oh, we're starving now. This is like starvation. We are hungry all the time. We must be in some desert where there's no food or water. So we're going to start storing fat reserves. And we're going to start freaking out. And we're going to start feeling like disoriented and dizzy and strange all the time because we're hungry all the time. And so there is a certain amount of time that you can keep this up, but eventually your body will, your mind will send you signals to binge. And so you'll start craving the most caloric things in the universe. You'll be just like dreaming about like pizza on top of a burger on like 3 slices of cheese on top of like a chicken on top of like, 3 piles of ice cream. And so wow, what a great image. And so what'll happen is you can be like, quote unquote, strong. And by the way, like starvation is not strength. Just want to put that out there. But you can really like kind of like be really adamant about sticking to your diet and not do that for a certain amount of time, maybe even a couple of years, but you definitely can't maintain it for an entire lifetime. It's just not possible. Your brain is going to keep sending you these signals to eat food that's high in calories because you're hungry. And so most likely what you'll do is you'll do a cycle of restricting and binging. So most likely what you'll do is you'll restrict because that's what the diet says. So first you restrict because, the diet says I can't eat this is okay, cool. And then your brain is like, please eat those things that you're not allowed to eat, because we're used to having like a balanced diet of different foods, and this is what we're used to, and like we don't want to feel like we're starving. And then you're like, no, I'm not going to do that because society wants me to look different, so I'm going to starve. And you can do that for some time, but eventually you will give in. And you will gain weight again, or you'll have like one day when you binge, and then you'll restrict again to punish yourself for the one day that you ate like a regular human being. And so this is a really tough thing that I find. I find this to be really, really difficult in the process of dieting. And I have had I've tried many diets in my life, and my family has also, been very encouraging, let's say, towards dieting. And if you don't know that there's an alternative, if you don't know that it's an option to love your body and to accept yourself, I don't think that you even consider any other option besides just being stuck in this cycle of binging and restricting. And there are people, and there are members of my own family that have been in this cycle legitimately their entire lives, because that's how it's designed. It's designed that it doesn't work. You think the problem is with you. You buy more books and more pills, and you fill up that drawer of shit with more things, and you feel bad about yourself for potentially your whole life. There's a study that says that children as young as 3 years old are unhappy with their weight and are unhappy with what they look like. And this is something that we have to answer for as a society, and be aware that beauty standards are so dangerous that people can be stuck in these really unhealthy binging and restricting cycles for their whole lives. And the worst part is that society, if you do this, society says, hey, congrats, you're a strong person. And you're a good person, and you're a good looking, attractive person for doing this. And the amount of times where I have a nice outfit on and I feel good and I feel attractive and I feel sexy and I go out, first thing people say to me every time is, oh my God, have you lost weight? Every time. And I go, no, I haven't lost weight. I just am dressing in a confident way. And I'm feeling confident, and that's what you're perceiving as losing weight, because that's the only way that you think that, I would be more attractive to you in this moment. So yeah, sorry. Bottom line, dieting doesn't work. It's not necessary to do. I wouldn't shame someone for dieting. I just it would just make me sad to see that, and it makes me sad when I see my friends or my family doing that, because I just know that it doesn't work. I just don't understand. Just like logically, it just doesn't make sense to participate in something that's inherently designed to fail.
The only diet I tried, if you could say it's a diet, is eating bananas for one day, just bananas.
That's definitely a diet. Yeah, absolutely.
But what happened in the evening was that I went to one swing dance evening where they had a table full of sweets. And I forgot that I'm on a diet, and I started eating, and then I remembered, I have to eat bananas. Yeah, I failed.
Yeah, I'm really glad you shared this story, because that's exactly my point, is that you didn't fail. that diet is insane. Eating empanadas isn't going to work for anybody. And like every diet is insane. You know, there are some diets that are more dangerous than others, like for example, keto. But you know, it depends. Some are a little less unhealthy, but all of them are unhealthy, and none of them consider your mental health and your mental well-being in any way. And I think that, again, not only is there a stigma around mental health, but there's also like a blatant amount of just like ignoring mental health and just like ignoring how people are supposed to feel about this. Like I'm sorry, but how awful is it that you come to a nice swing evening, potentially do some nice dancing, you move your body in a fun way, you see these beautiful sweets and you can't have any? How that's tragic, right? That also, I'm saying this like the 100th time I'm saying this today, but this also breaks my heart, you know? Why would you want to be able to like have some nice sweets on this nice table? Like why? Like it's just really sad. And it brings me to my next point, which is that we have this really unnecessary war on sugar, right? And we like compare it to like smoking or alcohol or drugs, right? And it's like, yeah, I understand. Like I totally support kind of taking a moment and you know, making some I don't want to say healthy because I think you know, these standards of health are a little bit ridiculous, but let's say making a different choice, perhaps having a salad for lunch instead of a cake, for sure. Like that, no, yeah, of course, that's wonderful. Like go you know, good for you. But this idea of having this war on sugar and being like, oh, having like dessert is like the worst thing that you can do, and it means that you have like no control and you're like a lazy person, you give in to every insane impulse. Like, excuse me, our cells need sugar to live, okay? Like sugar's not poison. It gives you energy. What does smoking give you? Nothing. No nutritional value, right? Like I remember this very vividly. I was talking to a friend one time who was a professional diver, and I had a box of brownies in front of me, and it was quite big and they wouldn't fit in my bag. And I was like, oh, I really don't know where to put these. And he legit looked me straight in the eyes and he said to me, oh, just put them in the trash because they're trash anyway. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was straight up just like, well, you know, sugar has no nutritional value. So just put it in the trash. It won't do anything good for your body. And that really blew my mind because like, that's not true. Like somebody needs to check their facts because, and I understand, like, I appreciate people like, for example, Jamie Oliver, like, you know, putting like healthy snacks into schools and being careful that, you know, sugary drinks isn't all that kids eat. I understand that totally, but having this war on sugar and saying that, you know, just the act of like having a box of brownies near you is like some sort of sin, God forbid eating some of them, I think is really ridiculous. And I think we need to remind ourselves that we also need sugar to live, and our cells like it and it gives us energy. So somebody explain to me why not.
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah, I ate a whole bar of chocolate before this, and I'm proud.
You should be proud. Exactly. That's a wonderful attitude to have. I had a really nice tiramisu before this.
Nice.
It was nice. Let's just talk about like all the sweets we like. This is my favorite podcast. Like, let's just talk about dessert.
Anything else? Or should I continue with my super funny off-topic questions?
Yeah,
I think this is a good place to wrap.
Okay. Then the first question I have for you is which smiley face represents you the best at this moment?
Oh, at this moment or like in life? Because I feel
yeah.
I feel the one that best represents me is the smiley face with the sunglasses, because it's like it's trying to be cool, but it's so distinctly uncool to be a smiley with sunglasses, and I think that summarizes a lot of my character.
Whew, what a good answer. I don't know how to top that. First of all, great question. No one's ever asked me that in my entire life. For me, like, it's a great question, but really it's no question for me. No question at all, because it is definitely my most used emoji, and it is the hard eyes emoji, 100%. I really feel like I'm walking around with hard eyes my whole life. I'm just like, oh, this is so amazing, and this is so cool, and look at that, that's amazing. Like, that's how I feel all the time. So
next time you get some glasses, you need glasses in the shape of two hearts.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Yeah, I was also actually thinking about buying star glasses.
That would look so good on you.
And I would say my emoji is the one with the cheeks, with red cheeks.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel when I'm sending the message and I'm smiling at the end.
That's so nice.
Cool. So besides smileys, I want to transfer your minds to the fruit and vegetables. Which fruit or vegetable would you like to be, let's say, now?
Right now.
That's fair. Let me think about that. V, do you want to go first?
I think I'd like to be a grape, because if I don't want to be like chopped up, if someone's gonna eat me, I just want them to go ahead and eat me whole.
Nice.
Incredible. Incredible. Oh my god. Oof, that's harsh. Like, I wasn't thinking about being eaten. Like, I would definitely be some kind of berry for sure. But it's tough because my favorite berry is a blueberry, but I don't feel like I'd be a blueberry. But I guess that makes sense, because then I need to be a different fruit from the kind of fruit I would eat. So I guess I'm gonna go with, I don't know, but I don't want to be strawberry, because that's so like cliche, you know? Like, what's
I
like
think
a
you should stop worrying about what other people think, Hannah. I think you should, I feel like you're trying to live up to society standards of what fruit you should be, and you should just go with it.
See, it got me, it gets us all, is my point. I said all these smart things, but now it just got me with this fruit thing. Yeah. So you're saying I'm a strawberry, yeah? Yeah. I think that's what we're saying. Yeah, I think I'm a strawberry.
I love strawberries.
Thank you.
They're really good berries.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm a strawberry, and this wasn't part of the question, but definitely like with whipped cream, that kind of strawberry.
Cool. Okay, so we are at the finish of recording this episode. I'm really happy we had the chance to talk, and do you have maybe like some last words or a word for our listeners?
Just want to sum up. I feel like a lot has been said, and it's kind of hard to summarize, so I'm going to do it for y'all. I'm just going to say, anybody listening, you look beautiful. We all need to be the hard-eyed emoji and look at ourselves in the mirror with hard eyes and appreciate ourselves. So just remember, you look beautiful, you're a survivor, you're doing great, and you don't need to diet. Have a wonderful day.
Yay! Hurrah!
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Have a nice day, and have a lot of glitter and rainbows in your lives. And goodbye, and see you in another episode. Bye.
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 All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow.
All for rainbow. All for rainbow.